Hey everybody, I'm Rick St. Clair, host of Listen Up Elora, and today I have with me the mighty talented Liam Wesley. Liam, tell us about you.
Well, hi, I am Liam. I'm from Parry Sound, Ontario. I'm actually a student at Guelph University. I'm studying music. I just finished my fourth year. I gotta go for a fifth year, but yeah, like I said, I'm from Parry Sound, so small town Muskoka. I kind of carry that vibe within my music, but at the same time, my family's from the East Coast, so my mom's from Newfoundland and my dad's from Nova Scotia, so that traditional music I also carry in my personal music, and we actually, me and my brand new band the Windswept, we just did a show. I want to say last Friday. Yeah, last Friday, and we actually did some of that East Coast music, and it was really fun. But yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. We came across each other at I guess it was like a songwriter round at the Cornerstone in Guelph, hosted by Nico, right?
Yes.
And yeah, it was really good time. I thought the room was pretty good. People were kind of tuning in and listening, so I liked that. And you played quite a few songs that I really enjoyed. One was like it was sort of like a ballad or a sort of narrative story about a Wild West character, right? Tell us about that
Yes.
song.
Yes. So that song, it's a song called Bill Miner. I haven't recorded it yet, because I literally wrote it when we did that Cornerstone thing. I wrote it like a week beforehand, and I was like, well,
Okay,
we'll see how it goes.
went
But
great. That was my favorite tune, easily.
oh,
Yeah,
sweet, good, good.
yeah.
But yeah, the song's about. Um, I was listening to Coulter Wall. I don't know if you know who that is, Coulter
Oh
Wall,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah. So for anyone that doesn't know, he's a Canadian country artist, and he's from Alberta, and he does all these, I guess, outlaw country styled songs. And I was thinking, like, I want to do something like that. Like it sounds super cool. I want to be able to write something like that. So I looked into if Canada had any, Wild West history of any sort. And so
Sure.
this guy, Bill Miner, come up, and he's from Kentucky, so he's not Canadian, but the story or the song's basically about his trouble with the Canadian law and everything, and he had robbed multiple trains and such things. So that's kind of what the song's about, is that history of who he is, and his history with Canada specifically. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah, really, really great song, great storytelling, and I like that there's a cultural pillar there, right? So you're integrating some, Canadian history into your songwriting, which is cool. It's fun to write songs about your own experiences, but also nice to hear, some
yeah.
like some history in there, right? I like that. You ever listen to a band by the name of the Lonesome Ace String Band? I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Maybe I can't say off the top of my head I can recall a song, but
Okay.
are they a Canadian band?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They're like an old time bluegrass hybrid sort of
Oh,
band,
okay.
somewhere in the middle. But usually play as a three piece. You have fiddle, banjo, and then upright bass. And I believe it was one of the tunes written by Showman, who's the fiddler, John Showman. He wrote a tune called Pretty Boy Floyd, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. If you haven't checked out that tune, you should check it out
I'll check it
because I
out.
think you'd appreciate it. But really nice to hear a Canadian character, of history in that kind of storytelling, uh, narrative type song. So really like that. I thought you would enjoy that, so I mentioned that.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, cool, cool. And so, where did you start in your musical journey? I know you said you're studying music at Guelph, but how long have you been playing music?
Well, it's a bit of a loaded story, so I'll kind of sum it up a little bit. I did some piano lessons like early on in my life, but I didn't really grasp the want, I guess, to do music until like I was 16 or 17, something like that. And I had done I had a guitar class, and that was whatever, like in high school. But then the following year, so I was student council president at my high school, and we did this thing called Arts Fest, and it's been going on at my high school for a while. But for that show specifically, I did one of my first ever original that I released and wrote. a song called Honey. Um, I did it in front of the school, and I was like, I might be able to do this. Like I kind of, it went well, so I was like, oh, this is neat. So that's kind of where I'd say my want to pursue music
Mhm.
started. I'd say was that interaction in that whole environment. It was pretty cool. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And I guess, you mentioned that your family is from the East Coast. East Coast certainly has a really rich music tradition out there. So any fiddlers in your family or anything like that?
So I actually no, there's no fiddlers in my family, but my papa, my mom's dad, he'd play music for us for a while, like just growing up. He passed away when I was like 14 or so. And that's kind of when I picked up the guitar, but yeah, he would play accordion. He would play a lot of accordion,
Nice.
a
Yeah.
lot of that type of stuff, but no fiddle, no violin, unfortunately. But yeah, yeah.
Accordion's great too, right? So yeah, I love all that kind of music. It's really great. So that's cool that you got to kind of carry that tradition into your songwriting, right? So, and you're mentioning that I guess this band, Windswept, that you have now. So, are you planning to write originals and perform with them as well? Is it something that you're leading, or is it kind of a group effort? Tell me about that.
Um, yeah, so it's funny. So the windswept, we weren't like I don't know how stories really are when bands, connect and become a band, but ours was kind of I had this recital and I had them all playing in it, and we did this show. I want to say in February, we did this show like on Guelph University like campus, and it was this competition. And we did like really, really well. We won actually. We won the
There you
competition,
go.
which was awesome, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But and we all kind of were like, yo, like we could do this. Like
Yeah.
we could be a band. So we kind of like marketed through there and we started picking up speed with that type of stuff. But yeah, we have talked about releasing music. I am like the predominant, songwriter, I guess, is kind of the vibe that we have. And we actually have a song that we're getting ready to release, like just so we have a bit of a plateau to start from and move our way up. And it's a song called Prophecy. And Prophecy is it's a really fun song to play. It's a really fun song to play. And the added, so our band has like a violin. We have a guitar player. He plays banjo as well. Actually, it was Nico. Nico's in the band.
Right. Okay.
And we have a piano player and a drummer, and it's pretty dynamic how we play. And I think I've been told that we're very Mumford and Sons esque. We
Mhm.
have that kind of vibe to us, and Prophecy definitely has that vibe, I think. At least I hope it does. That was kind of how I wrote it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we're definitely looking into releasing music in that type of sorts.
Okay, cool. Cool. I'm excited to hear it. It's nice to, do your solo projects, but then when you get a band together, it just so many more possibilities, right? With like rich instrumentation and everything, right? So it's cool. It's good to do it all. And so you've released how many singles now? I think I've seen a few at least on Spotify as your sort of like your solo project.
I have released a few. I am taking a couple down though because they were just I had released them in high school and like the end of high school and like really really early on in university, and I
Mhm.
wasn't they didn't come out how like expected them to, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Just because I was getting new, I was new to the mixing and the mastering and all that stuff, and I was doing it myself. So it was just the projects that I want to basically rejuvenate, if that makes sense. Because I don't, it's not that I dislike them because they are, I like the songs. I wrote the songs. I have to like the songs, right? But I am going to rejuvenate them. But there are a couple that are definitely staying. And I have, like I said, Honey, like my first song, that's staying up because it's just part of my history. And I feel like I should keep the first song I ever wrote and everything up there.
Yeah.
Um, but the most recent song that I have out is a song called Canadian. And I released that song, I want to say last May, if that's correct. I released it in like voting season. So it
Yeah.
was the song was basically as we all know, like conservative and liberal, it's very head-to-head bashing and all that stuff, right? And the song was basically like a encouragement for people to vote, and I was basically saying it doesn't matter where your vote's going, just
Mhm.
vote. And that was kind of the meaning of the song, was like we're all Canadian, we're all one, and whether you support the Conservatives or the Liberals, it we are united. We are united, and I feel like that's an important thing for us to remember as a country, that we're not divided, I guess. And that's kind of what the song was about.
Okay, right on. And so, like, do you have any plans to do a full length record for yourself as well? Do you have any, or do you prefer to release singles? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So at this point, I'm I am debating that. I am debating that whole subject, because now that I've started this band and that we're gonna start releasing songs under this name, I was also debating that as well. At this point of my like trajectory, I think for now it's just gonna be singles under my name,
Okay.
but under the band, I think you know, we'll start off with a couple singles, but then we'll probably release a record of some sort. I don't know how soon. I don't know anything like that, but yeah, that'd be my answer. Like I'm not sure about myself right now, but the band definitely I'll be pushing at. Yeah.
It's hard to know what to do, right? Because you know, the industry standard has been to release albums,
Yeah.
right? But it's kind of going back and forth. Singles were popular at one time, right? And albums kind of came to be, and there's certain industry professionals that will only look at you if you have a record, and certain awards and things like that. You need to put out a record, right, to be able to be
Right.
recognized, things like that. So, I mean, it depends on your goals, but I'm not sure where the listening culture is at. I'm curious for you to speak on behalf of your demographic, within sort of your age cohort. Do you have friends who actually listen to records, like not even just vinyl, but I mean like whether it's a CD or even on streaming? Like, will someone listen to an album front to back, or is it more playlists and people just assemble their own kind of sort of track list of tunes?
I definitely say definitely people are making just their own tracks and their own playlists and everything. I don't know how many people, but like personally, um, if there's an album that's been released, I will only really take a listen to every single song if it's like my favorite artist.
Right.
Otherwise, it's like almost like a picking and choosing type of situation. And I don't know if that's regular for everyone else, because people just could listen to the whole album. Maybe they had the entire album to their playlist. It really is personal preference, and I feel like it's hard to generalize an entire like age group in that sense. Like
Sure.
for instance, like personally, I will listen to an entire album of the Irish Rovers, but I won't listen to an entire album of Morgan Wallen. Like that,
Sure.
it's like I bounce back and forth with that. So I think it really comes up to preference and the individual themselves, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I was just kind of more so curious about like, your anecdotal experiences and like, but maybe with your immediate circles, right? But I agree, we can't make sweeping generalization, but it does seem like, at least in my observations, that a lot of people, not even just youth, but you know, all kinds of people are going more towards just playlists and out
Yeah.
of convenience, right? Instead of kind of just listening to records. Although I'm sure there's still quite a few that do, but you know, I figured maybe you being in a music program, you might come across more people who are interested in albums, right? Let's say. But when you're thinking about that, in the trajectory of your projects, right? Singles are a little bit more, tangible in terms of costs, right? So, you don't have to drop as much money as you would on a full length record.
Yeah.
Gives you a little bit more chance to experiment, right? You try one single, see how it goes, see what your sound is like and what people are receptive to, right? And then that you can kind of, hop from tune to tune and try things. It gives you a little bit of freedom too, right? And unless people are buying records, which, it's kind of tough to sell physical music today, right? Unless you're Sarah Farrell or Jesse Wells or, maybe Taylor
Yeah.
Swift or something, right? That yeah, it's kind of tricky. So it puts into the question. I'm always curious to hear, what someone who's a little bit younger is their experience is with that. Um, so let's shift gears. We talked a little bit about recording and releasing music. What has been your experience finding audiences, places to play? What's been your experience with all that?
So I'd say mine's slightly unique in that way. Just for the reason that I personally, for the past, I don't know, 3 years that 4 years that I've been at university, I haven't outgoingly like looked for gigs. That just hasn't been my vibe because I've been in larger productions in the sense that like last year I was the lead role in University of Guelph's like production of Little Shop of Horrors, and that was like my main focus. And gigs were kind of like a side thought at that point because I had this whole musical I had to memorize and all that stuff, right?
A lot.
So I think finding gigs since we've been doing this band stuff and now that I'm not in the musical, of course, it it is interesting. It definitely is interesting because there's certain vibes for certain songs, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like if I were to go to a jazz room, it probably wouldn't, mix with my music that I'm going with. But at the same time, if you're talking about like availability and all that stuff, it definitely is difficult because everyone wants to play music and I think it's great. I think it's great that everyone wants to play music and it shouldn't be, like a sheltered hobby, right? Like it's better for everyone to start applying for that stuff. But yeah, gig, it's interesting. It's interesting stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say that with the time that you have put into, trying to book gigs and all that, has it been difficult for you, or are you finding it easy? Is it difficult to find venues where you can perform your type of music? You mentioned, you wouldn't perform your music necessarily in a jazz room because you're a little more folk, I guess, right? Is how you
Yeah.
probably describe your music, right? But yeah, so like, has it been your experience that way, right?
And in that situation, I feel like because I'm from Perry Sound, the I feel like the music industry and just music world and artists and all that stuff are a bit more uh, a little less crowded, if that makes sense. So if you applied for a gig for a restaurant of some sort, I feel like there's a higher chance to get it up there. And personally, I've played at my provincial park. Like I work at an Ontario provincial park, and
Nice.
I played
Which
at
one?
that. I work at Osler. So
Okay, nice.
yeah, yeah. So it's
Yeah,
like right outside of Parry Sound. It's super convenient.
yeah.
It's super convenient. But yeah, so I played there for their event in the summer and I've played a few other places for gigs. For me, I think it's not as difficult as, it could be, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. Because obviously, getting gigs is not, an easy feat. Of course it isn't. You have to send so much information and so many like credentials essentially that you're capable of doing the gig. And where I think that's a good idea for restaurants to have and everything, it almost is a bit of a guideline of um, like people don't get to demonstrate their abilities, I feel like. And where I might, I'm a university student and all that stuff, so that kind of brings me up a little bit on that pedestal, I guess, to get gigs, especially back home. Uh, as someone that wouldn't have that, I feel like there should be a little bit more openness for that situation, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so, I've got you scheduled for this coming Friday, right? Which is April 17th. You're going to be performing at Listen Up, which I'm excited to hear your set. And the concept of that event is that all the audience members remain silent while you perform, you tell stories, you might talk in between your tunes and all that sort of thing. So, what do you think about that as a concept?
I find it really intriguing. I find it really intriguing. I've never done something like that. Like I said, I did the musical and I did the show last week and they're more larger and people are bringing their phones out and all that stuff, right? Like to record us. And I really like the idea of the intimate relationship that, the performer and the audience will have at your event. And I really find it intriguing and I'm really excited to do it because I've never done something like that. I've never done anything like that.
Right, right. Yeah, it's out there. It's not like it's unheard of. And actually, I started a concert series about 10 years ago, right, where I was kind of inspired by one of my events that I hosted, which was kind of like six different bands. One of them was a singer-songwriter, acoustic folk opener, and she was amazing, but it just wasn't the right context for her. People weren't really paying attention. Everyone
Right.
wanted to, drink and kind of rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
So it just taught me that context really matters because I put on a show for her to headline, maybe a couple months later. And every person that came through, I just said, please no talking during the performances. This is a folk show. We want this to be, a listening space, right? And I didn't have to enforce the rule. Like everyone was totally glued to her and really enjoyed that, right? It was a really nice moment of presence. So I ran, a series of that for, a while. But just as of recent, I kind of got back into writing original songs again, and it kind of reminded me of, that experience where it's like you want to be able to be in an environment where you can tell stories, and engage with the audience that way, especially when you're doing folk music and that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's what kind of brought this all back, and I'm excited to share that platform with other artists, right? That's a big part of what we're doing is, we're connecting you with a local Elora artist, right? His name's Harry, right? So I'm excited for you to meet him. He's also got a band called Painting Pelicans. So, hopefully you guys can chat and then maybe you can figure out playing some shows together as well, right?
For
So,
sure.
yeah, that's the idea. So, really excited for it. Again, just have to drop the little promo here. This
Oh,
coming Friday, we got tickets for sale right on Eventbrite. So, yeah, that's really, really great. And for all the people of Elora, I guess this is your first time playing Elora. Is that right?
it is. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So for the people of Elora, anyone who's watching this, is there anything you want them to know? Do you want to maybe drop your socials, your handles, anything you want to say?
Um, I love if they gave our band a listen. I would love if they gave our band a listen. Just the Windswept on all the social media except for YouTube. YouTube, it's the Windswept official. But yeah, come check us out. Check out some videos. I'm really excited to do this show, so I'm really excited to see everybody. So yeah,
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. Liam, thanks so much for joining the call with me to talk about your music and getting us ready for this event on Friday. And looking forward to seeing those band photos too. So, yeah, I'm sure you'll have them posted soon, hopefully, right?
hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, right
Okay.
on. Well, that's
Thanks.
great. So, yeah, again, thanks so much. And I'll catch you on Friday. Eh?
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.